You've heard the saying, your reputation precedes you. Well, it's especially true when we're talking about the internet. Most of us have set up email accounts and websites. We belong to social media sites. We buy merchandise, play games, write blogs and reviews, and we kind of just search around. But you probably don't know that by doing those things, you're leaving a digital trail that could allow some people to affect your life and livelihood. In our ongoing series, Virtual Violations, we're going to explore how individuals and business owners can protect themselves in cyberspace. My next guest is Stephen Wyer, Managing Director of Reputation Advocate Incorporated and author of the book Violated Online. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
You know, pretty scary to think about this because a lot of people I think are doing all those things and they really never ponder and think to themselves, can I be violated along the way? So this is pretty serious.
Well, it's interesting. Everybody buys into the user experience. It's fast, it's easy, it's fun, and people really don't stop to think about the information they're providing and where it ends up.
Exactly. And everybody, you know, their hearts are in the right place, and why are they going to think that somebody would do this? But people do. And you actually started your company because of your experience with negative publicity on the web. Tell me about it.
Yeah, well, you know, it's interesting. My identity is defined by how I see the world and how I act.
Absolutely.
I found out my online identity is how other people respond and react to the information they find about me.
Really?
In my situation, I was involved, this goes back 10 years ago, before Facebook and before Twitter, and I was involved in simple litigation, a lawsuit. And I had no idea that that information could be found online. And one day, a client secretary suggested I take a look at the information online about myself. And I was totally taken back. So at that point, I became aware of things that were going on. And there's no question about whether it impacted my life at that point.
And let's talk about that, because you and your wife Barbara, you have a couple of small children. Not now, but back then.
No, we still have them. Yeah, we still have them.
Of course you do. Tell us about how it affected the entire family at the time that it happened. I can only imagine.
Well, you know, it's interesting. The thing about the internet is you never know who has looked at information. You never know what they've seen. And it's not the type of thing where somebody's going to say to you, excuse me, I read this information online. Is it true? In my case, the litigation was plainly online. It was a matter of public record. And our daughters went to a school. And one day I walked into the office of the school and I happened to look at the computer screen, and there was the litigation that I was involved in.
Oh my gosh.
So right away I figured out that the people at the school knew. And my wife and I were just talking about this, and she said there's no question in her mind that she began to feel like people looked at her different.
Yeah.
You know, what did they read? What did they understand? What did they know?
And what did they interpret?
What didn't they know? And then how did that translate into how you know, we were treated?
Exactly.
And we ended up actually moving our kids from that school and placing them in another school.
Oh my gosh, now that is horrible. That is horrible that needed to be done. Probably something that I would have done as well, too.
It was hard to explain to my daughters why they were changing schools.
So unfair. Now, why aren't we protected by existing libel and slander laws, Steve?
Well, there aren't very many libel and slander laws. Television, you're a long time in television. Radio, newspaper, there's very clear guidelines for how you can deal with that. If somebody accuses you, you get to face your accuser. The internet, really, the foundation of it is freedom of speech. But the differentiator is that you can say what you want, when you want online, anonymously.
I see, anonymously.
And so, anonymously. And so all of the freedoms that are extended to us regarding the ability to state political opinions, racial opinions, religious opinions, all of those things can be done online with anonymity. And so there's a certain freedom people have there because they're hiding in the shadows.
At what point do people usually find out that their reputation has been compromised?
Often they don't know until they apply for a job, or you're applying for something for your children, a club membership, something like that. You're up for a promotion.
Oh my gosh.
Single people face this a lot. You know, now the easy thing to do if you're going out in a first date relationship, the very first thing you're going to do is look online and see what information you can find out about the person. So, and the types of information that are online are really broad. There's a lot of different types of information out there. There's private information that you volunteer, which is when you go through that user experience and you give them your name and address and phone number and birth date and color of your eyes and all that good stuff. It's a wonderful, easy user experience. Well, all that information is being retained. So you've got that, and then you've got public record information, which is not just going to be birth information. It's going to be litigation. It's going to be divorce documents.
Sure.
It may be adoption documents.
Yes.
Every piece of litigation you've ever been involved in. So as a small business owner, if you've ever litigated against an employee, an employment claim, liability issue, all that information is online and anybody can see it at any time.
So how do we avoid this situation? Because people probably are saying, okay, what do I do?
Run.
Run.
No.
Leave the country. Go to Spain.
Well, I think the first thing is to be aware.
Yes.
Which is what we're talking about here. Have the courage to go online and look and see what information is there about you. Most people have never done that. And so when you first go through that experience, you're gonna have a better sense of what you might need to protect yourself against.
And if I notice that something's been written about me or whoever, my family, what can I do about it?
Well, there are lots of things you can do. The first thing I always tell people is respond, don't react. People go through shock sometimes when they find out what's out there. I can think of a lady who called me that was in a 10-year marriage with children. Prior to that, she'd been married briefly at an earlier time in her life and never disclosed that to her husband.
Oh.
She did the search, and the very first thing she saw were documents that related to that first marriage. So you don't want to react,
right?
Because you freak out.
And also, really, depending on what you read. I mean, I've read things about me, I'm not going to lie, and sometimes I just walk away and say I'm not going to pay attention to this because at the end of the day, I'm pretty confident of who I am.
Yep.
I would think it would have to be something that would really, really, really be something that would intensify your anger.
And so,
or affect your family.
Yeah. So what do those sites look like? A lot of blogs and forums, they're open. And so I can comment and make any comment I want about you, your style, your dress, your family, your conduct, any of that.
Sure.
So if you find content on a blog, the one thing that you can do quickly is if you go to the bottom of the page, there's a terms of service. And you can look in terms of service and see if the comment that's been made is inappropriate by the website's standards. So, what do you do about that? Be aware.
Be aware.
And you can always begin by correcting the information if you've got access to that site.
Stephen, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Great information for us. And if you'd like more information, visit reputationadvocate.com, where you can also order Stephen's book, Violated, online. And coming up in our next series, we're going to talk social networking and how your family could be at risk. So stay tuned for that.